Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for stopping by. It's me, Only Run Very Noob, coming straight from Bravo Land. And you know what hero we're playing. Big Bonkers. And today we are playing against Vynnset. My strategy against Vynnset is basically just fatigue them. I'll throw attacks when I can. Sometimes Vynnset takes turns off. And I'll just do what I can. But ultimately, I feel like you can just block as much as possible and hammer and kind of smooth victory or sail to victory there. I feel like this might be one of Vynnset's hardest matchups because they really just can't deal with fatigue. We have 3 Sink Belows and 3 Fates to even combat their pummels, which is one of the ways they can try to go over the top and get some, card advantage with their on damage effects. I only bring in 63 cards because I don't need more to fatigue them, but I side out Zealous Belting, Pummel, and Red Unmovable. The Red Unmovable might be good because they do pump their attacks, but it's just not too necessary, I don't think. And a lot of times you want to use your blues to Arcane Barrier. And then I side out the other 2 cards just because they block 2 and we're not really looking to attack them. And I do run Titan's Fist and Buckler. It probably doesn't really matter that much. You could probably do a Nothos, but I just take as much block as possible because it's been very successful for me. Probably have a 90% win rate, if not 98%. I think I've lost to Vynnset twice in 80 games. We start with a hand that has 4 blues and an Imposing Visage. So we're just going to Imposing Visage, searching for Crippling Crush most likely, and then also making a Surge with our other blue. We could just attack with Titan Fist to fatigue them a card or 2. Maybe that's what I end up doing here. Stamp Authority might be cool, but they don't really have on hit effects. All of their effects are on damage effects, so I don't think Stamp Authority stops that. And yeah, I just make a Surge. You could hammer, but sometimes they'll have that defense reaction that makes a rune chant, and I don't think you want to give them an opportunity to play that. Plus, the Surge helps play the Crippling Crush. But honestly, not even super trying to play this Crippling Crush in Arsenal. If I can block damage, I will. Not looking to take damage to throw the Crippling Crush, I don't think. Maybe if you're only taking a couple damage. So here, I'm just going to take the Rune Chance because there's no on damage effect with this one. And I do end up blocking 6 on it to stop Mauvrin Skies and, preserve life. They have Go again, so they could potentially Flail of Agony us. And if they Flail of Agony us, I am just going to block with Armor. Keeping them off of Rune Chance is pretty good because it's kind of difficult for them to go from 0 to 3 in one turn. And a lot of their good Rune Gate cards are 3. Because we draw blue, we're just going to float a Surge and then dominate the Crippling Crush. You could just throw the Crippling Crush, though, because Unmovable and maybe even Warmonger's Diplomacy are fine in Arsenal. And if you're hard fatiguing them, you aren't even really trying to eat through their armor. You're just kind of trying to wait for spots where you only have to take 2 damage to throw a Crippling Crush like this, or when they just play a Read the Runes and pass. But having Crippling Crush in Arsenal isn't the best Arsenal card. I like to have a defense reaction in Arsenal because it's just kind of always there for when they pummel you. So that could be an argument for having the Unmovable in there as well. Having a defense reaction in Arsenal is also good against the Rune Gate card that destroys your Arsenal if you take damage, because then you can always use the defense reaction on the attack and there's nothing there to get destroyed by its effect when the chain breaks. We have some pretty good threats in our hand, so if we're allowed to keep them at all, we will, but we can't really here, because I want to prevent as much damage as possible on a full fatigue plan. I'm just going to AB3 these 3 rune chants, and then we're going to use the 2 reds to block the Deathly Whale, leaving a blue to hammer for 4. Very simple game plan into Vynnset. Fairly easy, and I have yet to run into a Vynnset that's really given me issues. I've lost to Vynnset a couple times, but honestly, the losses are probably not due to the Vynnset doing anything special and just due to me maybe drawing 4 red hands or something. Vynnset can go over the top though with Revel and Runeblood. So they can like play a Rune Gate attack with Mauvrin Sky's Go again, then play a Revel into another Rune Gate attack. And that kind of goes over the top of your defenses. You're going to take damage during those turns, but I don't think they can have as many of those turns as they need to deal 40. As you see here, I'm just Arcane Barrier 2 for the 2 rune chants, and then blocking 6. And we're just going to hammer 4. We play an incantation, and they make a rune chant here, but they only have 2 rune chants, so they can't play the Deathly Whale. They end up just passing, and we get a little lucky that we have a sort of aggressive turn we can throw at them with no setup. We just drew like a rouse turn, so we get to rouse the Ancients, and then hammer and arsenal a card. Don't really love having Cranial Crush and Arsenal, but if we ever get 2 blues, if we ever just get to keep 2 blues, I guess we can throw it. I think I might have rather made a Surge this turn though, because Cranial Crush is definitely a card that could get stuck in Arsenal. Play a Shadow Puppetry, and they pay 1 life, so we can't prevent the first rune chant. So we just have to take that one, but we are going to prevent the next 3. And then this Deathly Whale is coming in for 7, but both of the on damage effects, like he's already going to make 2 rune chants because we took a damage from the rune chant and they took a damage from paying 1 life. So we don't really need to worry about stopping the breakpoint. We're just going to block 6 here. They get a pretty decent hit off the top with their Shadow Puppetry. A lot of times what they banish with Shadow Puppetry is not that great. Like another Rune Gate attack just kind of deals damage to them with Blood Debt. I feel like Funeral Moon's like one of the very few cards that's pretty good for them. And we can't stop any of this damage. Of course, pitching the Sigil to Arcane Barrier is worse than just gaining 3. So we're going to take all this damage here. And just gain 3 and pass. Very exciting gameplay, I know, but this is definitely how I want to play against Vynnset. As you can see, they've already taken 24 damage and we've only taken 10 effectively. So eventually our hammer for 4 is just going to start making them block. You can't see my deck, but I only have 45 cards in my deck and they have 50. So you might think, oh, they're kind of fatiguing you, but you're going to fatigue them through damage. They also have no armor. So they play a red envelop that's +3, a Deadly Delight, which is for 5, so it's going to be for 8, and then 5 rune chance. They paid a life, so we're only going to be able to stop 4 of these rune chance. So 8. Might end up taking 2, because stopping the 4th rune chance pretty inefficient. It doesn't have Go again. They didn't play Mauvrin Skies. They just played the Envelop in Darkness. So we'll probably take 2, go to 28, prevent 3 with Arcane Barrier, and then stop 7 of the Deathly Delight, blocking 3 and using a Sink Blow, keeping a blue behind just to hammer. If I didn't have this bad card in Arsenal, I would definitely just block with the non-defense reactions and put the defense reaction in Arsenal. But we put a Cranial Crush in our Arsenal for some reason, which, as we can see already, is not that good. It's not really going to do us anything. Kind of an awkward hand here. Hopefully they're not going to create a ton of rune chance this turn, but it looks like they're just coming in for 8. 2 rune chance and the Widespread Ruin. So just pitch a yellow to stop the rune chance. And it looks like I'm going to keep a defense reaction behind. They end up pummeling, so that's pretty good for us because we can just use both of our defense reactions and not get hit by that. If this Starstruck would have been a blue, we might have gotten in a little trouble because we probably would have just tried to block with the defense reactions to keep a blue to hammer. A little fortunate there for us. Basically going to take all the arcane damage he throws at us this turn with no blues. We're not pitching reds to stop arcane. It's just way too inefficient. We really only have 2 reds that can block anyway. So we're just going to block as much damage as we can here. They play a Widespread Destruction, which I think is actually going to help us by clearing out our arsenal. And they also played a red Envelop of Darkness, so this is going to be for 9. We're going to end up blocking 7, gaining 3, and then arsenaling a Sigil. If you have a free arsenal, you should always just kind of place one of your sigils in arsenal. No need to play it immediately. It's not like in this matchup you got to worry about like Codex of Frailty or anything, but it's just less information for your opponent. And they might even like prioritize playing an Arsenal Destruction over some other more efficient play, and then you just get to get them with the Sigil, whether that's Command and Conquer or Widespread Destruction or whatever the matchup would dictate they could play. So yeah, we can't do anything with this hand. We get full tempo because they don't attack us. So we're just going to make a Surge and throw Disable for 4, or for 7 rather. But then we get to gain 3 and put a Fate Foreseen in Arsenal. So we do get to utilize our entire hand, even if it's not like that great. Like obviously dealing 7, gaining 3 isn't good for like a 5-card hand, but it's definitely good enough. They only have 3 armor block, And we have like 9 armor block. And as you can see, this game is just like, this matchup feels so free for Bravo. I'm super interested to see if anyone will ever like figure out Vynnset. Maybe it's just like an incredibly difficult deck to play. So we draw another Rouse the Ancient's hand, and they just like pass. So they got kind of unlucky. The 2 out of the 3 times they just pass, we have like an incredibly aggressive hand. No Anothos, so it's only 11 value, but like, you take that. I mean, they're at 3, so this game's definitely not going to keep going for that long. Being up 28-3, having a defense reaction arsenal, I don't think there's any combination of cards they could play that would get them out from under this. I mean, it's interesting they lost so much life because we kind of were committed to just fatiguing them. But they gave us like 3 turns of tempo for free. And we got to do pretty good stuff on 2 of them. And we also got to get all of their armor with our Dominating Crippling Crush early. So here we're seeing a Widespread Destruction. This is the one that destroys a card in hand. It does require 4 rune chants be in play though. So basically every time they cast this, you can just use your entire hand defensively. Pitching 2 cards to AB4, whether it's a blue and a red or 2 blues or whatever, and then using the other 2 to block the 6 on the Widespread. They pay 1 life. They have 7 rune chants though, so I'm not entirely sure why they paid 1 life. It'd be very hard for us to stop 7 rune chants. They probably should have just not paid 1 life since we're not going to stop all of them. But they paid 1 life, so we're just going to take 1, and then we're going to AB 6 and then block 6. And there's a chance they have Pummel and Arsenal, but it's just not going to do anything besides deal 4 damage. But it might not even deal 4 damage if we decide we want to use our Fate Foreseen, but probably would end up just saving the Fate Foreseen for a Pummel that would actually cause us to discard a card from hand. And we do have a couple less cards in our deck than they do, especially once we draw our hand of 4. But with our life total, our armor, and them being at 2, there's no way that they would be able to fatigue us because they have a lot of 2 blocks and we can just hammer over and over and over and over, and they can't flail over and over and over. Even if they had a weapon that would attack, we can just take so much damage without using cards that there's really no threat of us getting fatigued. This only gets +1, so it's coming in for 6 because that was a blue envelop. So 8 damage. I mean, you could just block and wait for a better spot, but with them being at 2, I almost like just taking 2 rune chants and then blocking with 1 Command and Conquer and 1 defense reaction here, and then sending a Command and Conquer at them next turn. Like, it's pretty easy to tell at this game state that we can just like not commit to hard fatiguing and start fatiguing with like damage. When I say hard fatigue, I mean just like blocking as much damage as possible. And fatiguing through damage is when you actually have to navigate a little bit differently and start attacking them. Because attacking people has a higher fatigue rate than blocking people. For instance, you throw a Command and Conquer for 6. That only fatigues you 1 card, the Command and Conquer you played, but it fatigues your opponent 2 cards to block it. I guess the same fatigue rate could be said for Titan's Fist. It costs you 0 cards from deck, and it costs them 1 to block it. Even though, I guess the Fist is a little bit better because they leak 1. And if we still have that defense reaction in Arsenal, we could have used it plus a card and then just sent Crippling Crush, but they just passed the turn again, and we get to just dominate a Crippling Crush here. So I believe they passed the turn 4 times, and 3 out of 4 of those times we had like a reasonably aggressive hand. And that's why this game was like really not close. Sometimes against Vynnset it's a pretty easy matchup, but this game was particularly unclose. Normally it's a little bit closer than this. Like my armor will be gone and I'll be at like 14. Instead of having 9 armor and being at 23. With a defense reaction just sitting in Arsenal. Which I believe that's what's still in our Arsenal. We haven't used that yet. Even if they have a 4 block defense reaction in Arsenal and in hand, they end up still taking 3. So they're pretty toasted here, I believe. And they do end up blocking like basically the full amount. But yeah, 8 to 11 means they still take 3 and lose the game here. Not exactly the most fun way to play Bravo, but definitely in this matchup, it's like so easy to employ, and your win rate ought to be very high. At least in my experience, it's been incredibly high enacting this game plan. It's an easily repeatable game plan because you don't really need much besides like a blue to AB3 and a couple cards to block. Even with only like 1 blue in hand, unless they had a turn off setup turn to set up like read the runes to go up to like 6 rune chance, 1 blue is enough because oftentimes they only make like 3 rune chance and then use like Deathly Wail or whatever. So that's kind of the reason why I wanted to show this game. I have a lot of Vynnset games, but I don't think I've posted one yet because it is sort of a boring plan. But I just wanted to show you guys in case you're new to Bravo and you might not know exactly how to face Vynnset. Hopefully this is a pretty good blueprint of what you should do. And one of the best things about this strategy, like I just said, is that it's like very repeatable. It almost doesn't matter what cards you draw in what order. As long as there's 1 blue in hand, you're pretty good to go. It definitely helps if when they just pass the turn for setup, if you have an aggressive draw like you saw in this game, but I don't even really think it's necessary. So yeah, hopefully this was fun and we learned a little bit. Comment, like, subscribe down below. I always love hearing from you guys, and I'll be back tomorrow with another video. Thanks for stopping by.